What's up guys and welcome. You are watching Fazi Fitness. So let's start this video with the reigning 2 times men's physique champion, Ryan Terry, going for his third one, and him getting an approval from the king of classic physique Chris Bumstead. That is something big. So both these guys have trained together many times, and Cbum knows what he's talking about. And looking at that 6 weeks out physique update from Ryan Terry, I have got to say the man is looking way too lean for this far out. No abdominal fat whatsoever, and that too with crazy amount of vascularity everywhere. So that right there is like a weak out look. But considering that Ryan Terry keeps on saying that he was far from his personal best last year at the Olympia, but he still won and is working on bringing something special this time around, that just goes to show us that he isn't a champion who's gonna get dethroned easily. So Ryan has been competing for such a long time now, and there is only so much time left before he retires too, because he has been competing as a pro for more than a decade now, and he has all the prestigious bodybuilding titles that there are to get. He won the Arnold Classic, the Olympia, so he will be looking to finish his career on a very high note and possibly step away from the sport of bodybuilding after winning the Olympia. Not that he has talked about retirement recently, but considering the fact that he's also a family man now, just like Chris Bumstead, and there are some things that you need to do in order to be on the top of the game, in order to be the best in the world, that also involve a lot of risk. But that being said, this time the men's physique Olympia, that is getting very exciting, and surely there are many guys who are fired up to take that title away from Ryan Terry. But they're gonna have to beat him at his all-time best this year. Next up, we have an update from Rubiel aka Nexilla. So he is now less than 6 weeks out of his first ever Mr. Olympia. So Rubiel's placing at his Olympia debut, that will all come down to his mindset. So many people have claimed that he has had a very hard time sticking to a diet. And this year we saw him pushing beyond his comfort zone, and that is how he earned 2 pro wins back to back. And he was able to beat a guy like Nathan Diasha, and that was a huge accomplishment. So at this point, it is crystal clear for Rubiel that if he diets longer, he's gonna have more separation, more detail, and more conditioning, and that is going to be his calling card at the Olympia this year. And we saw how it transformed for someone having, I'm gonna say, average kind of conditioning, an average kind of muscle quality for an IFBB pro at this year's Dubai Pro Show, to someone who was totally untouchable in both the shows that he did afterwards, especially his last show, the Portugal Pro. I mean, he not only won that show, the man dominated that entire lineup, and there was no competition for him at that show. So if he can come in even sharper for this year's Mr. Olympia, there is no reason to doubt that why he cannot shoot for a top 10 finish on his first try. He has that unbelievable size, amazing symmetry, and he also poses extremely well. And to top it all off, the man is the most freaky man in the entire bodybuilding at the moment, especially when he's on. Now we know how the fans and the people, they have always loved the freaks, especially at the Olympia stage, and that is something that fills the seats at the Olympia stage. And Rubiel is a true freak of nature. The man is the freak of freaks. So the 2 pro wins that he got this year, that must have motivated him to work harder than ever before. Because if this guy dedicates the next few years of his life to 100% bodybuilding, he can make a great living out of it. So we will wait for the time when Rubiel gets more separation, especially in his quads. Now it is more than likely that he will never get that, because that is a genetic thing. But even if he makes the slightest possible improvements in that aspect, if he can get more separation in his quads, he's gonna scare the hell out of a lot of people, even on that Olympia stage. A lot of people have been talking about Logan Franklin, as he placed second at this year's Arnold, Ohio, that he can be something big come Olympia this year. But there is also another guy who is being totally slept on, the guy who was a very big shocker at this year's Arnold, Ohio, and that is Matt Greggo, who placed top 3 in that show. And later on, he ended up beating the best version of Wesley Wizards at Detroit Pro. So that is a guy with one of the biggest frame in the entire classic physique division at the moment. And I think we can all see a future men's open guy in Matt Greggo. But at the moment, he's focused on classic physique. And the man is well on his way to improve his placings at the Olympia this year. So he was in the top 10 last year. But since that time, he has totally transformed his physique. He has added a whole lot of muscle density and muscularity to his frame. So the transformation of Matt Greggo from the year 2023, when he made his Olympia debut, to this year, when he did the Arnold, that is out of this world. He went from looking like an amateur physique to a full-blown great bodybuilder with the least amount of flaws, and we are on our way to see his best ever in 6 weeks' time. And there is a chance he might end up in that first call-out. So for those of you guys who do not know, he trains with the reigning Arnold champion and the former Mr. Olympia Derek Lunsford. So one can only imagine how motivated he would be to present his all-time best. So the most important thing for Matt is how much muscle he sacrifices in order to make the weight. We know he has to suck down very hard in order to do that. And that is why we will see the best of Greggo when he finally switches over to the open bodybuilding. So the transformation of John Jewett and his physique over the course of just 1 year, that signifies the importance of the waist control all throughout the growing phase and even in the off-season. And John himself emphasizes a lot on the importance of the waist control and the implementation of the vacuums, especially during the off-season, because that is the time where many bodybuilders, they kind of get sloppy, and that is exactly where they ruin their physiques, by blowing out their waistline. So this comparison picture is such an awesome example on how the illusion of having a smaller waistline, that just changes the entire flow of any physique. And we can go down the list of the names, the people who tried to get too big too fast, and the changes that were made, especially in their midsection, that became totally irreversible. And one of the biggest reasons why John Jewett looked so much better in the open bodybuilding is obviously, first of all, he carried a lot more muscle mass, a lot more muscularity, 25 pounds to be more precise, than the 212. But at the same time, he made sure that his waistline, his midsection, that stayed super tight. And although the outcome of the 2 shows that he did this year, that wasn't what he was looking for, but overall, that was one hell of a physique. So looking forward to seeing him bring an even better package sometime next year. So we have heard and seen so much chatter about Samson Dauda's 6 weeks out guest posing, which just happened this past weekend, and almost 99% of the reactions and the opinions, they are in his favor. So I'm gonna put out some reactions here in this thread, and this positive feedback that will allow Samson Dauda to carry a lot of positive momentum going into his first ever title defense. And it is so great to see Milos Sarcev, Samson's former coach, leaving such a positive comment under his guest posing post. So the bodybuilding fans, they have a very short-term memory. And if you have forgotten, Samson and Milos, they seem like an unbreakable team all the way up until the Arnold Ohio last year. So great to see both these guys on the good terms one more time. So the lines on Samson Dauda and his hamstrings at 6 weeks out, they were the biggest indicators that the man is well on his way to beat his Olympia package from last year by a big margin, especially in terms of conditioning. And yes, I know, a bit on the flat side, he did not have that freaky muscle mass that he normally has. And that is of course the one concern regarding Samson Dauda, that the amount of size that he kind of seems to have lost, especially when you compare his guest posing when he was around 9 to 10 weeks out. But on the flip side, he got a lot sharper, and maybe the plan is to start to carb load a little early and test out a few runs on how his body responds, and maybe he can grow into the show. So 90% of the people after watching this guest posing, they believe that Samson Dauda is gonna repeat. But let me know what you guys think. And also hit the thumbs up button if you liked the video, and smash the subscribe button if you wanna come back for more. Thanks for watching.